Hey, this is Mike, the PrepperNerd, and I wanted to share with you some thoughts that I have about an idea that I had brought up in one of my recent live streams that I got some good feedback on. So I wanted to produce a video with sharing some of my thoughts about investing in stocks or in precious metals, etc. How to grow your investable funds, your wealth for your family, so that you can, have more options, right? And so your children or your family can have more options as well as to make money so that you can make sure that you're adequately prepared for, whatever it is that you are preparing for, and to help you meet your preparedness goals. So, and if this is something that you'd like to hear more about, if you'd like me to produce more videos on this topic, I'd be happy to. Just leave me a comment down below and give the video a thumbs up so I know that this is of interest to you. What I wanted to share was kind of the way that I view investing in stocks and precious metals, and the approach that I've been taking for quite a while now, related to the technicals, what's called the technicals, right? So the technicals are based on what you see in a graph, right? A stock price graph, as you're seeing here on my screen. This software is called TradingView. It's a very powerful software. I've got, I think one of the lower end subscriptions to it, but allows me to do everything that I need to do. The only thing that I'm not able to do as much of as I'd like to is set as many alerts as I'd like to when things are approaching the price points that I'm looking for. So, but what I wanted to do was I wanted to share with you this concept of what I call channels. It may go by other names, and I'm sure I'm not the first one to talk about this. It may even be a common concept. I've never learned it this way from anybody. So, I wanted to share again how I look at investing, and what I'm looking for in terms of when to buy and when to sell, right? Because I don't invest long term. I have a more active approach to my investing. I like to buy things on sale, and I like to sell things when they are at a high price. So, and by doing that on a cyclical basis, and it's not day trading by any means. I mean, I might hold certain securities for 3 months, 6 months, a year, but I always have an idea of what price I'm targeting to sell a stock that I've purchased. So you can see this concept here depicted on this graph of the Dow Jones Industrial Average. You can see these orange lines here. You can see these blue lines here. You can even see some other orange lines here. These are what I'm referring to as channels, and they're basically my best approximation of the pattern of the stock price moving up and down, right? Because as a stock appreciates, it's following a general trend, as you can see with these channels. But what it ends up doing, because of social behavior, psychology, etc., right? I mean, about people jumping on the bandwagon, or then when stocks are dropping, they panic and they sell really quick, right? So typically what happens, what I see typically with most stocks that I've actually researched and that I'm keeping an eye on now, is this pattern of going up, or of traveling within the channel, but going through peaks and valleys, right? So this channel that I've identified here, obviously it's hindsight, and hindsight is 2020, but it's working in terms of my purchases, and the investments that I'm making are turning out to be solid decisions, based on this approach and based on these channels. Now, I will say, I'm not sharing this to provide any advice. This is not advice. I am not a financial advisor. Don't listen to me. But at the same time, all I'm doing is sharing what I'm doing. Okay, so you can take that for whatever it's worth to you, but do your own research, make your own decisions. Do not look at this as advice, because it's not. Okay, so what I do is when I identify a stock that I want to follow, I've just again got Dow Jones here. I identify what I perceive to be the peaks and valleys of that overall trend. So here you can see I've got a valley here, and I've got the peak line of the trend here, and you can see it goes from here, the valley to the peak, to the valley, to the peak, to the valley, but it even extends beyond the valley, the bottom line of that channel, and then it climbs gradually over. You can see over the course of 7 years or something like that, to the top of that channel. But what have we experienced since then? It's gone out of control. Right? I mean, this kind of appreciation in the overall Dow Jones Industrial Average is it's insane. The way that it's the trajectory of appreciation, like it's almost looking like it's exponential, and it shouldn't be this way. That's why I think everybody who's saying to be careful in the stock market, for me am definitely being careful, because this to me represents that everything is just, the Dow Jones as an industrial average is completely overvalued, right? And actually what you can see here is, these orange lines, this orange channel is the long-term trend. This blue line represents a new trajectory, but then the correction that we saw, the event that we saw in early 2020 with the pandemic actually brought the price back down into the normal, what I would consider to be normal long-term channel. But then what happened? Boom, astronomical growth over the last year or so. So to me, this represents something that's drastically overvalued, whether it's a stock, whether it's an industrial average, whatever. It's drastically overvalued. This type of trajectory can't be sustained. Even this type of trajectory can't be sustained, right? This is a normal, to me, what looks like a normal pattern. So what I would expect, in making my own investment decisions, is that the Dow Jones is overvalued. It's going to correct down to this blue channel, if not even down eventually to this orange channel. And you could see some sideways, you could see some downward into the blue channel, and then ultimately into the orange, something like that, longer term, right? Because these channels have long-term implications in terms of the correct value of security or of an investment. So this is far overvalued, but I'm going to contrast that with something that I feel is undervalued. I'm going to go to crypto. And I'm actually going to go to something that another YouTuber had not recommended, had introduced me to within the last few months, and it's a crypto called Cardano. It goes by ADA, right? So I'm just adjusting this to make it easier to read for this particular investment type. Well, I should say this particular cryptocurrency, not investment type, but the crypto obviously has a value. And what we've seen is this, again, this band or channel of price for this cryptocurrency. So it's gone from peak to trough to peak to trough to peak to trough. It extended beyond the lower boundary of the channel briefly here for a few days, and then exploded. Right, and then it came back into the channel. It's almost, I almost shake my head at how, interesting and telling that these channels can be, right? Because it just keeps moving up and down within the channel. So the more accurate you're able to see that channel take place or take shape, and actually the sooner that I'm able to see a channel take shape, it represents opportunity, right? So right now, look at where we are. We're at 130, 132 on ADA, and here's the channel. So what does that tell me? It tells me this is a really strong opportunity to buy here. For me personally, I'm not telling you to do anything. This is not advice, but for me personally, if I had funds available for speculative investment, which I consider crypto to be speculative, then I would look at this as a great buying opportunity. And when I say speculative, I just mean, for me, I come to the decision to, for however much funds I have available for investing, whether that's, in retirement accounts or not, I take a certain percentage of that I'm comfortable taking greater risk with. Okay, and I consider cryptocurrencies to be much higher risk than what I see as more stable patterns that I've seen within the stock markets. As you can see here, this pattern has only been in place since March. So, for me, that's highly speculative. But with increased risk comes greater potential reward, right? So this could crash to nothing, and then I'm out, those investable funds. But it could also appreciate significantly, like you see here, like it did here. And the greater the risk, the greater reward. So I do set aside a certain amount of my investable funds for speculative investment like this. But yeah, this to me looks like a great opportunity. Now, if we were in this area back in mid-May, right, even here, I'd be saying, wow, we're well over the top of the channel. I would look at least reducing my exposure to this particular investment. So I would probably, if it were me, sell off, some percentage of what I held in this investment, because I would be expecting, even at this point, I'd be expecting it to come back. Although in a speculative investment, you are looking for breakouts. So you have to make that decision about, how much you're willing to let ride. But in a normal investment decision, I'd be looking this as a high point. I'd be looking to sell. So I'm going to go to some investments that I currently hold because of this pattern that I had recognized for them. So let me just okay. So here we have a pattern that I see, and actually I could probably move this line a bit up, I would say, because you've got the trough here. Got a trough here, and this was actually the February to March of last year. So I look at that as an anomaly with like a one-time event, right? So, and then the top of the channel looks to be about right here, just looking based on the patterns that I'm seeing, right? So based on that channel, I decided to buy here at this white marker, and that was about 105 or so, and today we're at 153. So that's been a great buy. Now, I'm actually holding on to this because I feel that it will eventually arrive in somewhere in this range. Maybe 160 to the 180 level. So as it approaches 160 and even beyond 160, I'll feel more and more pressure to actually reduce or completely sell off, what I have in this particular stock. So, and then we've got this next one, genetic technologies. Again, I'm recognizing a pattern here. Now this one, you can see there was a pattern I saw here where it was declining significantly for a long time. But I'm recognizing a new pattern here where it's inclining significantly. So all I'm trying to do is minimize my own risk exposure by buying at the bottom of what I see as the trough of a pattern, a price pattern, or a channel of price. So here I bought here at about 370 or so, Right now it's at 435, so it's modest, but I'm still expecting it to get up to this level, maybe 5 to 550, and when it gets there, I will likely sell it off and look for the next opportunity. Now, if it languishes down here and it goes sideways for a while, right? Actually, the channel would tell you that the price potential may be up here, right? It's no longer here, it would be up here because the channel continues. You got to be careful, obviously. Sometimes things can break out of the channel and it becomes a new pattern, so you got to keep your eye on it. But here, even things tend to keep a pretty defined pattern even longer term. Like you can see here, there was a total sell-off, right? But then it came right back into the pattern. It's really interesting. So the next one is Hasbro. I personally love this particular stock. I love the patterns that I'm seeing, and I'm going to show you why. So you can see here, I'm seeing a pattern going back. This should probably actually be longer. I'm seeing a pattern going back all the way from 2013. So the longer the pattern, I think, to me, the longer or the more trust or confidence I have in that pattern. So here you can see the pattern was at this trajectory, okay, up here, and then the pattern shifted into a slower trajectory that would lead here, and then the event last year, the anomaly last year, and then it's climbing. We've got a new pattern here. So I'm going to zoom in. There's probably easier ways to do this. I got to get more adept with this software, so maybe future videos will be a little less of me manipulating the interface here. But I got in here at 96 or around 96. It's actually down from there, but it's nowhere, it's still within that striking range, so to speak, of that channel, right? It's hanging around right underneath this channel line. And what I love about this is that I'm expecting it to not only follow this channel, but I'm looking at this feeling that the price of the stock actually has pressure to get back into this channel as well as potentially, longer term, back into this channel, which would put it somewhere in this range, right? So that might take some time to do, as you can see here where I'm pointing. If you look at the bottom of the screen down here, you can see, I'm targeting perhaps in the, I may make a decision here if I'm thinking more short term. If I'm thinking more long term at that time, you may be looking at September or October of last year, where it could get back into the range of these prior channel patterns. Next one is Intel. Let me just adjust here a little bit. This one looks great as well to me. This is a pattern that goes back to 2014. So we've got the peaks, we've got the troughs, we've got the channel lines. This orange line is just an alert that I set up for myself. So as a stock price adjusts over time, it may go up and down, for a while, but I'm still recognizing this channel. So I would adjust the my target line accordingly, right? So right now, based on where we're at, if it were to go in this kind of trajectory, I'd want to know right when it crosses that $70 price point, so that I can make a decision and likely sell this particular investment. And what I'm looking at is selling high and then looking for opportunities where there's an opportunity to buy in a low part of the pattern. And frankly, even if you're looking at this more long term, you would want to buy a stock when it's at a low point, right? So if you're thinking long term, I don't want to buy here. Even if I'm thinking long term, I'd rather buy here, even if I'm thinking long term. So don't just look at for me, I wouldn't just look at the stock itself. I'd look at where is it in this overall trajectory channel, right? And I wouldn't buy securities when they're up here. And then the next one is SDGR. This one has not been around for that long, but you can see I'm seeing an early pattern here. Just a couple of peaks, just a couple of troughs, but I did decide to make a purchase here around the 64, 65 range. Right now it's at about 78. And look, I mean, it only took, here, let me actually zoom in a little bit more. It only took, look at this. So 42 days and it's about 15%. So hey, I'll take that any day. That's a great return. But as you can see, I'm expecting much more from this. I expect it could get into the 100+ range, and then probably bounce back, and on it goes. Some other ideas or other stocks that I'm actually invested in. This is Tesla. I know that it's been on a roller coaster and some huge swings and has a lot of attention on it and everything like that. But I'm recognizing a pattern here. Obviously before that it was relatively flat for a long time, but based on recent news and events, back to it looks like it extends back to about the end of 2019. I'm seeing this pattern, so I went ahead and made a decision here. 634 and now it's at 684. So that's a start, and I'm looking for it to get more up into the 750 plus range before I start thinking about selling. The other one, Alibaba. So this one looks like a great opportunity to me, and one that I have invested in. You can see the trends, the channel lines go back to 2016. So I'm thinking, that represents, gives me confidence that this is a good buy decision. I bought down here at 220 or so. It's at 227, so that's not much of a change, but look at all this room for growth just in the channel by itself, right? So I'm thinking 300, if expecting that it's going to keep following this channel kind of trajectory. I'd expect it's going to get back to 300. Now that might take a year, right? It could take, if you look down at the bottom again, in this area, May of next year, right? But then again, it's going to, I'm expecting it's going to go up and down. It's going to bounce back and forth. So I think that's pretty much describes what it is that I'm looking at when I'm investing in stocks, right? I'm actually never fully invested based on what I have available, because what I do is I take the amount of funds that I have available for investments and I chop it up into equal increments. So I might chop it up into like 10% increments. So I might say 10% is speculative, and then the rest of it I'm going to use 10% for each purchase opportunity, right? So that gives me as many as 9 stocks that I could invest in at a time. But I'm never actually fully invested. I never have my money into all 9 stocks at a time. And that's just a kind of a general approach. What that does is it allows me to diversify. So I'm never overly invested in any one thing. And, if this one continues to go down for some reason, something changes with this company, for example, generally speaking, I am confident that the other stocks, the other investments are going to continue to follow their pattern. I mean, unless there's some sort of, major, sell off of the whole market as a whole. But like, what's interesting is the index, remember going back to what we covered in the beginning, the index is way up here. So even if there's a huge correction, which actually this model would expect, a huge correction in the Dow Jones, the stocks that I'm actually holding and watching may be somewhat protected from that because they are at the lower point in their channel. They're not up here like Dow Jones, they're down here. So, the stocks that would likely to be the most affected right, would be, let me see if I can find one here. These are all in their channels. Disney's outside of its channel right now, so I would expect Disney to be potentially impacted. Domino's is at the top. I think, yeah, Big Lots is at the top of its channel. Caterpillar is way above, right? So, I would expect that if there's a correction in the overall market, it's stocks that are contributing to that overvaluation that will be most impacted by the correction. Not stocks, generally speaking, this is my theory, generally speaking, not the stocks that are in the lower range of their price channel, so to speak. So that's it for today. You saw a few of the things that I'm watching. I'll probably do a separate video on some of the investments that I'm watching. I think this one's already gotten a little long, so I'll leave it there, and hope this was helpful for you. Hope this gave you, maybe some ideas for yourself. And with that said, I'll go ahead and wrap it up. God bless.